Tonight, the political firestorm swirls as Prime Minister Trudeau's top aide resigns.
We want to keep the youth close to their languages, close to their identity.
We begin our series, Perspectives on the Child Welfare System at the Atikamekw Nation.
The training, it was probably the toughest training I did in my life, but but overall it made me a stronger person, both physically and mentally.
And a dedicated youth from the Siksika Nation travels to Kenya in his journey to become a world-class athlete. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward.
And I'm Melissa Ridgen. The
long weekend on Parliament Hill did not mean a stop in the SNC-Lavalin scandal. Allegations are that the Prime Minister's office engaged in political interference in a criminal prosecution involving the Montreal-based company. Yesterday, Trudeau's closest advisor, Gerald Butts, resigned.
He denied pressuring former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould to interfere in the prosecution of SNC-Lavalin. Butts maintains he was working in the best interest of all Canadians. APTN's Todd Lamoran chronicles another day in Ottawa consumed by the scandal.
The day began with ministers on their way into a cabinet meeting answering questions about Gerald Butts.
It's obviously a sad moment for me and Jerry's many friends and people who really admire the tremendous work he's done for Canada.
The rest of the morning in the House was debate on an NDP motion to hold a public inquiry.
To do the right thing, to stop hiding, to explain why Jerry Butts had to take the fall, and for this Prime Minister to vote for our motion to have an independent investigation.
Arif Irani, the Parliamentary Secretary for Justice, said the appropriate forum would be to wait for Ethics Commissioner Mario Dion to investigate the matter.
In a nonpartisan, apolitical manner, in a manner that has more robust mechanisms to have this actually addressed through the Ethics Commissioner investigation, which is already underway.
That the Ethics Commissioner can only look at a very, very small aspect of this, but not the aspect that actually matters, which is the legal interference by Jerry Butts or the Prime Minister or anybody over on that side.
Angus also defended a public inquiry in a press conference, saying the Prime Minister needs to come clean before running for re-election.
If this is just the typical backroom, old rum bottle politics of Ottawa, and he's just the latest purveyor in a long, dirty and tawdry tradition of corruption and cronyism, well, then that's what he's going to run on in 2019.
Question period saw several demands to have Jody Wilson-Raybould give her side of the story.
There are questions that have to be answered. The actions of this government are actions of a government and a Prime Minister who have something to hide. So, Mr. Speaker, there is somebody who can answer. That's the former Attorney General. We want answers. Canadians want answers. Will you let her speak?
Late this afternoon, the House's Standing Committee on Justice issued a motion for Jody Wilson-Raybould to appear before it. She's currently consulting with her lawyer on what she can and can't say before it. She maintains she is still a Liberal Member of Parliament. Todd Lamoran, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Still in Ottawa for the next 2 days, Parliament will be hosting a pro-pipeline truck convoy. They come largely from Western Canada. But the pro-pipeliners were met by a demonstration of anti-pipeline demonstrators. For the most part, they traded insults and tried to outshout each other. The convoy supporters were pro-development, but had a whole list of grievances that could politely be called right of center politically.
This scam they call climate change, this scam they call, and they're going to defeat it with carbon tax, is exactly that. It's a scam.
It's the same
They've convinced, with the help of the media, they have convinced many, many folks that we're going to do something by paying a carbon tax. No, we're not. Well, we are. What they're doing with the UN, backing from the UN, is it's part of the redistribution of wealth program that they've instituted.
And we want to hear what you think. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous news.
Ottawa police report they've ended their weeks-long search of the Trail Road landfill after finding the remains of a murdered woman. Police were searching for the body of Susan Kuplu, an Inuk woman who had been living in the Ottawa area for the last 2 years. Kuplu's daughter and the daughter's boyfriend have both been charged with second-degree murder in the case. Kuplu had been missing since January 11th, and police were searching the landfill since January 26th. The coroner in Ottawa has scheduled an autopsy, and both of the accused remain in custody.
A Northern Ontario First Nation that has been under Canada's longest boil water advisory has issued a state of emergency. Siksika First Nation declared the state of emergency on Saturday over a lack of drinking water in the community. They're calling on the Minister of Indigenous Services to provide bottled water to the community until the water treatment plant is operational and the boil water advisory has been lifted. A request has been made to meet Minister Seamus O'Regan in person. Just last week, the First Nation terminated a contract with the firm working on the new water treatment plant after numerous frustrations over the project that is nearly a year behind schedule. Siksika has been under a boil water advisory for 25 years. One of Canada's oldest and largest friendship centres has been ransacked. The Winnipeg Indian and Métis Friendship Centre has been closed since the summer, but the Bear Clan Patrol found the centre in disarray over the weekend. The group was patrolling late Friday night when they saw one of the doors pried open. Inside, they found extensive damage to the bathrooms and the kitchen. The centre was shut down after controversy with the board in 2018. The National and Provincial Friendship Centre Associations cut off the centre's membership, and the new group soon defaulted on the mortgage. The centre was founded in 1968. The damage has been reported to the Winnipeg Police.
That was a huge resource to our community. It was well loved and used by many people in our community. The social hall, the bingo hall, food bank, programming for youth. Kookum's had a sewing club there and things like that. And it's all destroyed now. And so we were looking forward to, in April, MAC board was going to reinstate the funding to a new board. But now I don't see how that's going to happen. That building is going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to renovate to get back up to, where it was.
We need to take a quick break, but when we come back, our new Perspectives series on child welfare.
First, here's a look at tomorrow's weather. Starting on the east coast, -8 under sunny skies for Halifax, -18 for Nain and Happy Valley Goose Bay, -5 for Montreal, -7 in Val d'Or, 0 for London, -1 with snow in Toronto, -8 with a rain-snow mix for Thunder Bay, -5 in Wawa, -17 in Puckatawagan, 23 below under sunny skies for Churchill, -9 with snow for Winnipeg and Gimli, 11 below in Brandon, -11 as well for North Battleford and Yorkton, -11 as well for Meadow Lake, -23 in Stony Rapids.
Welcome back. All this week, we'll bring you new stories in our series Perspectives on the Child Welfare System. Tonight, while many First Nations across Canada want the federal government to relinquish control over child welfare services, one First Nation in Quebec has already taken them over. Here's Sophie Claude Miller with Sovereign Child Protection.
Atikamekw.
Grand Chief Constant Awashish of the Atikamekw Nation enjoys showing off his people's traditional handiwork, especially when it comes to their birch bark craftsmanship skills.
That's a moose call.
That's a moose call? Have you ever called moose?
Yeah, of course.
Can you try it?
I don't know about this one. That's a small one.
Not bad, not bad. Awashish is proud of more than just his people's birch bark skills. That's great. Their territory covers a vast portion of central Quebec. Atikamekw is among the strongest Indigenous languages in Canada. 97% Atikamekw speak it as their mother tongue, and Awashish wants to keep it that way.
Yes, we want to keep the youth close to their languages, close to their identity. But if we don't have the place necessary for them, then It's like they have to go out of the community, which is not good.
Keeping youth close to the community has been a long-time battle. After decades of having children placed in non-Atikamekw foster homes, last year the Atikamekw became the first First Nation in Quebec to take over total control of the child welfare services. They now have 80% of foster kids in Atikamekw homes, as opposed to 20 years ago, when 80% of kids were being placed in non-Atikamekw homes.
With our system, that's what we try to do. It's very communication between family, between the community, and to make sure that everybody understands what happened, and from that, we can move on.
Ça, c'est nos bureaux de services sociaux.
The Atikamekw child welfare system is about more than just languages and keeping the kids in the communities. It also has something called a Wisdom Council, a group of appointed community members who weigh in on cases where the extended family can't decide on what course to take with a child that needs intervention. It's ideas like this that has others in Quebec looking to the Atikamekw as inspiration. Inuit in subarctic Quebec invited the Atikamekw to give a presentation on their system.
It was very powerful and empowering for us, because what the Atikamekw went through in the past are almost the same as us, what we're going through right now.
Much like the Atikamekw, most Inuit speak their mother tongue at home. But unlike the Atikamekw, many Inuit foster children are being placed far away from their communities.
A child needs to know where they come from, their culture, their values, so it's very important to keep them in their community.
Due to factors like overcrowded housing, many Inuit children in care end up over 1,000 kilometers away in Montreal, where they are in danger of losing their culture and language. As a result, Inuit across Nunavik are in the process of establishing an organization to help ease the burden of the foster families. Back in Atikamekw territory, resources for foster families has also become a point of discussion. Suzanne Chilton runs the daycare in the Atikamekw community of Wimotashi.
J'en ai à peu près en moyenne 48 par jour, là.
Aside from looking after the community's youngest, she has also been a foster mother for 12 years.
Ah, mon Dieu, c'est pas facile. C'est pas facile d'être une famille d'accueil dans sa communauté parce que les services sociaux te demandent de suivre certaines règles, mais quand le parent, mettons un exemple, ils n'ont pas le droit de contact aux parents, mais quand le parent il habite à 200-300 pieds de chez toi, tu n'as pas de contrôle.
Chilton would like to see more training for foster families and to have more of a say in policies going forward. But perhaps most importantly, resources for parents who lose their children.
Pour qu'il y ait l'aide et les outils pour qu'ils puissent reprendre le chemin avec leurs enfants.
Still, most can agree the Atikamekw Nation taking control of their child welfare services is a victory for sovereignty. Who knows how many kids placed elsewhere could have been the next great Atikamekw craft person?
There's a saying that says you need a community to raise a kid. I think that's what we try to apply to our system.
Sophie Claude Miller, APTN National News, Atikamekw Territory, Quebec.
It's time for another break, but when we return, we'll have a story of a long-distance runner who has taken training to the next level.
And we'll pay tribute to some leaders lost over the weekend. But first, here's the rest of Wednesday's weather forecast. Picking back up in northern Alberta, minus 13 for High Level and Fort McMurray, where snow is on the way. 4 below in Lethbridge with snow, minus 5 in Calgary with snow, minus 1 in Penticton with a rain-snow mix, minus 3 in Kamloops, minus 8 for Fort Nelson, 2 below in Smithers. In the Yukon, minus 9 for Old Crow and Beaver Creek, minus 8 in Watson Lake, 17 below for Yellowknife, minus 14 in Norman Wells, 23 below for Sax Harbor, minus 21 in Paulatuk, 30 below for Repulse Bay, 29 below in Chesterfield and Baker Lake, minus 34 in Arctic Bay, 27 below in Resolute. Welcome back. A long-distance runner in Alberta traveled halfway around the world to train with the best. His goal, to make the cut for the 2020 Olympics. But with the challenges of growing up on reserve and being diagnosed with a heart condition, the journey hasn't been easy. Tamara Pimentel has that story.
From the Siksika Nation to Kenya, long-distance runner Riley Manybears took his training to a whole new level. He spent 3 months at a training facility in Eton, Kenya.
The training, it was probably the most toughest training I did in my life, but but overall it made me a stronger person, both physically and mentally.
He's back home now, working at the rec center and involved in community events, but he says looking back at his time in Kenya is an eye-opener. The 23-year-old usually trains here or in Calgary, but the conditions he faced in Kenya was a new challenge.
It was kind of a culture shock, the challenges I faced, the high altitude. I never trained at high altitude before, and I dealt with high altitude sickness and also living in a lower class, living as a Kenyan. So the first few days didn't have power, didn't have water, but kind of brought me back to my childhood because growing up on a res, Siksika here, I didn't have that.
Manybears faced a lot of barriers growing up. Recovering from addiction, running became a stress reliever.
I didn't really have much income support. I didn't really have the best proper running clothes, running apparel and all that, and I didn't really complain, so I still kept training.
In 2015, he was diagnosed with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, a rapid heartbeat.
I was actually prepping for the Canadian Track and Field Championships, and then I kind of noticed I was getting these heart strains. I thought it was heart spasms and kept bugging me, and then I just had to drop out of the race.
Despite his diagnosis, Manybears went to Brazil to compete in an 8-kilometer race at the first World Indigenous Games and came in first. After surgery, he competed more, earning medals at the North American Indigenous Games in Regina. With the financial and motivational support of the Siksika community, Manybears trained with the top runners and coaches in Kenya.
I went there, still, confused in life, but, came back a whole different person. I feel reborn now, and, I can just, appreciate the things in life now.
Manybears plans on heading back to Eton this April to continue his training for a race this summer. But his ultimate goal, competing in the 2020 Olympic Games. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News on the Siksika Nation.
In Winnipeg, First Nations and community leaders are mourning the loss of a prominent Indigenous elder. He was a well-known veteran, a recipient of the Order of Manitoba, and led countless grand entries carrying an eagle staff. APTN's Ashley Branson speaks with his daughter as she remembers her father.
Joseph Mekons will be remembered as a respected elder, an Indigenous activist, and a war veteran. But to his daughter, he'll be remembered as a loving father.
He was always very sweet. He always spoke with great kindness to me, a soft voice. But I also knew that he could be, when I would hear him talking to other people, he could be very straightforward, and he could be a little rough around the edges too, but to me he was a big bear.
His daughter Renata Mekons says his passing was sudden. On Saturday he was supposed to bring his eagle staff to a Winnipeg Jets game and drop the puck, but he didn't feel well and he stayed home. The next day he passed away.
It's unexpected, and I think it makes it much harder for us to have it happen this way, but either way it's a great loss, and it's really hard to take.
Mekons was from Saizi Dene First Nation. He was a regular fixture at Manitoba powwows and cultural gatherings. He was a peacekeeping veteran that served in Cyprus and Germany, and throughout the years he was a staple at many Aboriginal Veterans Day celebrations.
I always say every day should be Veterans Day. Because if it wasn't for the veterans, you wouldn't have radio, TV, or anything. You'd be in capitalism. People will be telling you what to do, but we got freedom.
He was also a corrections officer at Stony Mountain Institution for over 20 years. In 2009, Meekons was presented with the Order of Manitoba for the work he did to improve the lives of Canadian Aboriginal veterans. Many influential individuals pay their respects to the veteran online. Mayor Brian Bowman tweets, "A proud Canadian, Indigenous elder, and veteran, Joseph Meekons made a positive impact in life. He will be missed by our community. Deepest condolences to Elder Meekons' family and friends." Former MKO Grand Chief Sheila North pays her respects. "My condolences to my friend Ramada Meekons and entire family of the lovely Joe Meekons. Such a sad day, but like everyone, grateful we had the time we did with veteran and elder Joe Meekons. Rest in peace." Phone calls and messages of condolence have been flooding the Meekons' family. Renata says her dad has always had a great presence and is thankful for the support.
I appreciate that they have remembered him, and that's really, it's kind and it's moving, it's heartbreaking, and it just shows how much of an impact he's had in the community.
Elder and veteran Joseph Meekons was 77 years old. Ashley Branson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Respect our people. Respect the elders.
Sadly, Joe was not the only loss over the weekend. One of the people behind a recently settled class action lawsuit passed away in Winnipeg today. Gary McLean was from the Lake Manitoba First Nation in the central part of the province. McLean, seen here on the right, filed a case against the federal government in 2009 on behalf of some 200,000 Indigenous children who attended schools in their communities during the day but went home when school was let out. The lawsuit claimed the plaintiffs suffered many of the same abuses as residential school kids. The federal government agreed in December to provide $200 million for healing, wellness, and education programs. And you didn't see it there, but Gary always had a very big smile, and it'll certainly be missed by a lot of people.
It's a big loss for the community here with those two gentlemen.
Indeed. Well, that's your APTN National News for this Tuesday. Tune in tomorrow when Melissa will put food sovereignty in focus.
You betcha. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
And I'm Dennis Ward. Stick around. The Laughing Drum with Tim Fontaine is next. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
I'm reading.